Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. My name is Suleiman. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we are discussing issues around zoning. Zoning right now appears to be an issue that has engulfed both parties, both the ruling party as well as the opposition PDP. But today, we're discussing zoning within the opposition PDP. But maybe we should start about what it means to Nigeria as a whole. Is it something that, we thought that after the politics of 2011, in which zoning was also quite loud in the elections, we thought that it wasn't so loud in 2015 or 2019, as it was in 2011. So we thought maybe we have moved ahead of zoning. Why are we caught up again in discussions around zoning? Dr. Kati.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for this. Our country, Nigeria, is fundamentally built on zoning. So when we formed our party, the PDP, the PDP was also foundationally built upon zoning. That's why if we have a chairman from the north, the deputy chairman must come from the south. If you have a chairman from, a secretary from the west, the other person, assistant secretary, will also have to come from the alternate side. And that's how we were. So we had an issue when there was an incumbent president, President Goodluck, and he just succeeded Yar'Adua after Yar'Adua passed on. And some were saying he has to give way. So he wouldn't stay there. And so some members of our party, in particular called MPDP, formed a caucus and said, we must respect the zoning, that our party is foundationally built upon zoning. And that argument was agreed to by a lot of Nigerians. And with the MPDP, coalitions were built across country, which bettered the Buhari presidency. President Buhari promised those members that formed that thing with him that he would do a term. So they were comfortable. But as politicians, they now saw as he went in, he was already planned for second term. So out of anger, they came back to the PDP. The PDP allowed them to take the 2019 ticket. I went and I traveled. I was working with the gentleman at the Saraki campaign. Later on, I traveled to 35 states with Vice President Atiku Abubakar. But then after that, it went the way it went. He went to Dubai, and afterwards, the Buhari presidency has now concluded. Because zoning is between the north and south.
Okay.
No matter the vehicle you use to achieve it, we follow the national political clock. Now that President Buhari's 8 years of rule has come to an end, everybody now believes the zoning now takes it to the south. But those members of our party who were disappointed by President Buhari, who came back, were now insisting that they had a deal with our former chairman, Mr. Secondus, that he will stay on so that they can also run for the presidency. If that happens, it means the North will get 16 years and the South will not have anything. Yet, our democracy is built upon...
Let me bring your partner into the discussion.
Yes.
Because he says in the 16 years that the PDP were in power, PDP specifically, in the 16 years that they were in power, you had Obasanjo's 8 years.
That's not what we say.
Yar'Adua was 2 years.
Yes.
And Jonathan's 5 years, more or less. So it was largely a southern presidency, which is why some people are saying if you are even going to zone in the PDP, it should not be going back to the south, even though you have a Buhari presidency. Do you subscribe, your team, do they subscribe to that argument?
We subscribe to a completely different argument.
Please go ahead.
Our argument is that at this time, the issues that face the country now are very separate from the issues that faced the country at the formation of the PDP in 1998. Nigeria faces an existential crisis. we are having a conversation about whether we're going to continue to exist as a country. We have record unemployment. We have record insecurity. We have record distrust between the North and the South. Record distrust between the two primary faiths, Christianity and Islam. We have a disillusionment. We have two wars. A war against terror in the Northeast, a war against terror in the Northwest. We have a militia invading the North Central, taking over homes and farms. We have one agitation for separation in the Southeast. You have another agitation for separation in the Southwest.
Okay.
Now, with the plethora of problems that exist, right? The question should be, and this is where we subscribe to,
okay,
how best do we resolve these issues? Who best to lead us into a resolution of these issues? That's fundamentally what we believe we should be talking about. Okay. Not what language people speak, where they're from, which God they worship. Because the issues that plague us, I'll come there. The issues that plague us, the insecurity, doesn't ask whether we're Christian or we're Muslim, whether we're Northern or we're Southern. It worries us. The unemployment worries us equally. Now, if you have a conversation about it, if you even go back to the beginning, it's called a power sharing arrangement. You share power when you have power. It is the responsibility of the party in power to share. The job, the objective of the opposition is to win an election. It's to win an election. How do you win an election? You ask yourselves, amongst your leaders, who is our best candidate that we can put forward that has the acceptability, the name recognition across the country, the cross-country network that can help us win the election. And then after we've picked that person at the head of the ticket, we can follow everything else. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that zoning is wrong. It has its merits. What I'm saying is that in the context of our current national conversation, it must not be the sole determining factor. It simply cannot be.
Who picks the ticket of a party?
One final point. We'll
come back to that. The arguments are now quite clear, but part of the wider argument, either particularly within the PDP, because today it's PDP we're more interested in, that, okay, part of the problems that caused the agitations in the Southeast, that you are talking about, is a sense of exclusion.
Exactly.
That people have had over the years.
Yes.
And that if you are going to ignore those feelings again, it doesn't matter whether you have power or what you do with it, because these are not issues of politics or economy. They're also about emotional connection to the national conversation.
Of course.
So how does that
What
work?
you've captured is exactly what it is. What you're trying to say is that we run a representative democracy. You see, issues of justice, equity, and fairness, these are not just mere words. No, these are foundational perspectives. Every society that must have unity and peace must have equity, fairness, and justice. Without it, you will have mayhem. That's why you heard, as you rightly said at the beginning, that the people in the north, in the southwest, the south central, they all have voted for a certain candidate. As I'm speaking to you, all our governors have agreed. It goes to the south for the sake of the country. That's why I told you it's got nothing to do with politics. It's about national unity, maintaining the Nigerian project. If people feel, like you said, excluded, we'll have problems. Let me be honest. None of the elderly people have the capacity to stop the youth. So for us now to calm the youth in these agitations you talked about earlier, let them feel that their people are also part of the Nigerian story. And that's why we say we do not have the capabilities to fend these youth who are going, as he said, for agitation. And the only way we can do it is let them have that sense of inclusion in the Nigerian project. That's why I tell you, it's got nothing to do
So
with
is
politics.
zoning-
It's about Nigeria.
Okay.
So
Is zoning
let
the
everybody have a
only-
sense of belonging.
I will.
Don't forget, as we're talking about, he's talking about capability. Nobody has the capabilities as the candidates we have in the South. Look at Peter Obi. Just look at that. Look at Pius Anyim. Look at Mao Huabungwa. See people like Governor Wike and all that. Do you understand? And we have several people.
Dr. Chika,
We have the quality, we seek inclusion. We want the Nigerian project to continue.
Your point is well taken.
We do not want to damage Nigeria based on the desperation of
just give him a moment as well. Go on.
That is,
respond.
and I see these things and I hear these arguments. But we must correct something.
Okay.
And I will correct it for you. The zoning principle was founded in recognition of foundational injustice.
Okay.
Because power concentrated, right? And then the injustice is developmental projects, growth, development, the dividends of rule are not given to people are not given to parts of the country whose leaders or where the leader, the president, is not from. So a president from the south contains a president from the north, or from the south, concentrates power. His appointments are largely in one area. Most of the projects are largely in one area. And then it leads this sense where people believe that unless my person is president, I will not feel the benefits of governance. That's the foundational injustice around which the agitation for zoning is. If there's an equitable distribution of appointments, if there's an equitable distribution of resources, if there's an equitable distribution of contribution, right? People will not feel hard done by. People will not feel cheated. So zoning was introduced to balance out structural imbalances that existed at the time. But you know what? Where we are in the country, I'm coming.
Was it a one-off?
It's not a one-off thing.
Was it supposed to be a one-off thing to address historical injustices? Or was it supposed to be rolling over time?
It was supposed to roll over time.
Okay. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we are discussing new developments on Section 84(12) of the new Electoral Act 2022 with two people who I'm sure are well conversant with the issues. Mr. Biodun, maybe the first question is this act constitutional or unconstitutional?
Well, the question, I think you should narrow it down.
Okay.
If you say, is the act constitutional or not, the answer is the act itself is constitutional.
Okay.
Duly passed by the National Assembly and accented by the President. So it is constitutional.
Okay.
But if you have specific questions as to the unconstitutionality, I think that will be...
So is it possible for an act as a whole to be constitutional, but certain provisions of it to become unconstitutional? What will make the body, the whole, constitutional, but the part unconstitutional?
Okay. Every law in a constitutional democracy like we have in Nigeria derives their validity and legitimacy from the Constitution. Okay. The Constitution, like they say, is a ground norm that defines all the laws. Every law or every other law derives their life from the Constitutional. And that's why the Constitution is the supreme law. And by itself, it says any other law that is inconsistent with the Constitution shall be void to the extent of its inconsistency. So it is possible to have a law is made up of sections, subsections, like we have seen in every law. So it is possible to have a law with certain sections that are valid and some other sections, for one reason or the other, not valid. So it is possible, in a nutshell, to have a law that will be partly constitutional and to some extent unconstitutional.
So this issue of the unconstitutionality of this particular subsection 12, not the whole section 84, but just this subsection that requires political appointees to first resign before they can vote or be voted for during primaries or congresses of elections. What is there that makes it unconstitutional? What is there that prevents any part of it, or that law from being out of tune, like you said, with the provisions or with the Constitution itself?
Is that directed at me?
Yes.
For me, I do not share the sentiment of Mr. President that the subsection is unconstitutional. And I think the Senate, in its wisdom, has acted on the letter of the president, and has said that there is no merit in it, and as such, decided not to reverse itself by striking out or deleting that subsection 14, subsection 12 of section 84. And I have followed argument both in and out of court. And I've also followed the judgment of Justice Ayadike. Because the section she relies on to declare subsection 12 of section 84 of Electoral 2022 unconstitutional has to do with public servant. And I reliably learned that there have been several decided cases at the appellate court and Supreme Court, possibly, but at least at the Court of Appeal, that says that commissioners, ministers, special advisors, senior special are not public servants. Because public servants, by its own interpretation, are people who are recruited and have a tenure of 35 years in service or 60 years or whichever.
In other words, civil servants.
The civil servant. But there are categories that are called public servant. They are not mainstream civil service like armed forces.
Okay.
Members of the armed forces are not civil servants. They are public servants because their own regime, their work schedule is not in tune. Like you resume work at 7:30 and close by 4. Mark you, even when you look at the way the wages and emolument of these elected and appointed political office holders are paid, as well as those of public servants. One is under the National Income and Wages Commission. The other one is under Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission. So there are two separate bodies that decide what each of them gets. So a civil servant or a public servant is guided by National Income, Wages, whereas the political appointee, like the governor, the ministers, all commissioners, have their wages determined by the Revenue Mobilization and Civil.
Just like the politicians.
God bless you, sir. So when you look at that, you cannot, by any stretch of imagination, now say that it's SSA to the minister or to the president is a public servant, because he holds his office at the pleasure of the governor or the president and can be so removed. A civil servant or a public servant cannot be summarily removed. I don't know if you get my drift. Even if he's committed in the act, a minister cannot sack the PAMSEC. Even if the PAMSEC erred, he has to go through the normal disciplinary procedure as specified in the public service rules. I don't know if you get my drift. But an SSA to a governor or a minister to the president can be summarily removed without any evidence. We have seen President Muhammadu Buhari sacking 2 of his ministers.
In one day.
In one day. Did they go through, was there any hearing, was there any query issued to them? Did they have to be interrogated or pass through any disciplinary measure? The president just announced on here that you have been dropped.
Mr. Biodun, you said earlier, but he's brought an interesting distinction to the discussion. First of all, that you have two categories of officers here, public officers and then the regular civil servants. To one, you have an existing law that the judge has relied on. To the other, they are not included in that. But let us say, you said that the Constitution is the ground norm. So what is there in Section 84(12), as a lawyer yourself, that makes it unconstitutional, that makes it inconsistent with the provisions, any part of the Constitution as we know it in Nigeria?
Okay. Between, Mr. Ujo has introduced, like you said, a new perspective to these arguments. And between Friday and today, we have listened to millions of opinions.
Yes.
Everybody had one argument or the other to say. It is what it is, opinion. And I would like to take us back a bit to the process of getting to where we are today. When this law was sent to the president by the National Assembly, Mr. President wrote to them expressing concern about this provision. And he gave his accent conditionally. It's in the public domain. So, and in the letter of the president to the National Assembly, Mr. President said he had received advice from not only the Attorney General this time around, from all relevant agencies.
Okay.
And it was believed from the content of the letter that the proposed Section 84(12) violates Section 40 on the right to freedom of association and 42 on the right against discrimination. That was the letter of the president. But in the judgment of the court, which is in contention now, the court has now ruled that the provision of 84(12) is what it is, unconstitutional. So we continue to have arguments.
But the court cannot say unconstitutional, and that's the end of the story.
No, no,
it has to give justification
if you read,
for the constitutionality
of
or
course,
unconstitutionality.
court,
and Nigerians can take that apart.
No. The court specifically listed the provisions of the Constitution that is believed that this provision violates. Is in the public domain. Everybody has seen it.
Yes.
So that is the position of the law as of today.
So that means that that part of the Constitution will be deleted. I mean, that part of the electoral law will then be deleted, or has it already been deleted?
No.
By your office?
No.
Okay.
No. Let's get it right. The courts do not act in vain. There is no court that speaks to the hair. There was an action before the court, and the court has made a pronouncement, gave a judgment, made a pronouncement, and directed the Attorney General to take a positive act. So after the court has declared the provision unconstitutional, the court went a step further and directed the Attorney General to delete. That is a positive order of the court. The Attorney General is bound to obey the judgment of court.
Thank you. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. And we're discussing issues around the APC convention, which is just roughly 2-3 days away. So, Barrister, as a lawyer, probably that's a good place to start. So many of the issues that have happened within the party in the past few weeks, at least they have reduced, the court orders, the leadership changes, the no leadership changes, the Boni Part 1, Boni Part 2, and so on and so forth. Now it appears we're going to actually have a convention, Right. To what extent can Nigerians be sure that this convention is going to hold?
Assalamu alaikum, Jama. Well, actually, the Nigerians should be rest assured that the convention is going to hold. Definitely, inshallah, it will going to hold. Because in every political setting or every democratic setting, there must be up and downs, But with a good leadership, foresight and determination, things will stabilize as it is now. APC has had its own political up and downs, but as it now, I'm talking to you now, everything has been settled, almost to zero level. We're on course, all the aggrieved people, all the aggrieved groups have been.
So who is the caretaker chairman as we speak now?
As I speak to you now, the caretaker chairman is the Honorable, His Excellency, the Governor of Yobe State, Mai Mala Buni, is the National Caretaker Chairman.
Okay.
Yes, please. So that is part of the politicking, actually. In every democratic setting, there must be some rancor. But with a very good leadership, everything will come to normal, as it is now. The rancor which has happened in the APC some few days or some few weeks ago, it has now been overtaken by events. It has been settled down. So definitely the convention will be held on Saturday. There is no going back on that. And I believe, inshallah, it will come successful.
Thank you.
Yes.
So but the question of good leadership to settle issues, as which has helped to settle issues, as Barrister Yusuf Maitama has said, is precisely why some people have been worried, and have been catching cold, or sneezing, as we said earlier, in the country. Because you're talking about leadership. The highest leadership in the APC is that of the president himself, who occupies the highest elected office within the party. But we saw only a few weeks ago that on two different occasions, following each other, decisions were taken that were said to be by the president, and these decisions were entirely contradictory to each other. To what extent can we say of that as good leadership? And what is there to, what guarantee do we have that tomorrow something may not change again, even before the convention?
Well, first of all, I think the weather is too hot for people to be catching cold. But yes, there was a decision that was made by the president, and I think that decision was changed. But I think the focus should be moving forward. For now, Mai Mala Buni remains the caretaker chairman of the APC. For now, he, along with the caretaker committee members, are going to conduct the convention that will hold on Saturday, the 26th. So I think all the party members and the people who are aspiring for various offices are completely focused on, campaigning and securing the required number of delegates to achieve victory. So it's not to our benefit to dwell on the alleged leadership change and rechange that happened in the past. I think it's in our benefit to look forward. At the end of the convention, we can look back and do an assessment of, what went wrong and what went right, and put things in place that will ensure that rancor like that doesn't ever happen again in the party. For me, I'm a surrogate for Malam Salim Mustafa, who is an aspirant for national chairman. And one of the things that he wants to do is ensure that the APC is it's an institution. And I think when you create an institution, it's hard for rancor and issues like that to ever come up. So we just have to look forward, and that's my belief.
Okay, but it's okay to speak about not having any issues or not having rancor or moving ahead with more. But the leadership crisis was defined by interest within the party.
Right.
So even if you have settled the crisis, those interests have not gone away. Right. They're still there. So to what extent can we expect that those interests would not manifest themselves in the convention proper, particularly since we're talking about consensus?
Well, actually, if you look at the act which has been passed by the National Assembly and the President has signed it, that there are three options. first of all, by consensus. If where the consensus cannot take place, then there is direct primary.
Okay.
So, and another thing is, I can be a candidate today, and tomorrow I said I drop down, just without going even to the consensus side. As some of the, if you look at it, some of the
Yesterday,
candidates, somebody has stepped down. Just last week, people are stepping down now, you know, for some reason or the other. But the best way out is for people to, you know, cast their vote to the one they want to elect. That one happens to me sometimes, actually.
Okay.
I was the first democratically elected gubernatorial candidate in Jigawa State when the Jigawa State was created in the year 1991.
Okay.
But what happened at that time, I'm sorry to say that.
No, go ahead. There's something we might learn from.
What happened at that time, they wanted to enforce a candidate. Just about 3 days to the primary, there was a powerful delegation from Lagos at that time, during military regime, you know, at that time. They came to my uncle and telling him that he should call me to step down for someone they wanted to install. He said no, he wasn't the one that asked me to contest the election. It is the people. So let him call me. They called me. I came before them and they said, this is the message from Lagos. They wanted me to step down for somebody else. I said, who is that somebody? They told me. I said, that not to send, even if I send down. The opinion polls shows that if there's an election today, I will win the election, inshallah. And then followed by 1, 2, he's going to be number 4. If I step down, he's still going to be number 3. So there's no point for me to step down. They said, yes, they have all that in mind. They have own calculation. I'm the one who hasn't anything to blame for.
Okay. So did you eventually step down? And
No.
I'm just telling you.
Telling you, you know, I don't have anything to blame.
Okay.
But the second runner-up, he was once managing director for certain organization in Kano, old Kano State and Jigawa State. So he has a white paper on him. So definitely they are going to disqualify him.
Okay.
Another runner-up after him, he was also former secretary of the MPN in former Kano and Jigawa State. So he's also a banned politician. So if I step down, they disqualify these two. And the last person will be the gubernatorial candidate. Then I told them that, no, even myself, I have to make consultations. So they said, okay, you should come back 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning the following day. So after a day, I came back around 9 to 10 o'clock, just 2 days to the primary. They said, what is the decision now? I said, I consulted my people, and they said I should not step down.
So maybe we'll come back to that just a minute. We are 2 days away, just like in his own case,
right?
Now, you know, in 1991. Maybe the people involved may have changed, but it's the same politics, you know.
Right,
it's the same Nigerian politics, isn't it? So we're 2 days away from the convention now. Are we looking forward to other contestants stepping down? For example, more specifically, Malam Saliu Mustafa, people like Al-Marokura, who can we expect some of these big names in the contention to step down for someone else?
So I can't speak for the other candidates. Okay. I know my principal, Malam Salim Mustafa. I don't believe he has any intention of stepping down. He's fully focused on the national convention, and he's working hard to ensure victory. Going back to his experience, I think one thing to point out is that in our party constitution, it allows for consensus, indirect, and direct primaries. The concept of consensus implies that all the other aspirants have to agree to the consensus candidate. Now, in the event that one doesn't agree, then you just have to scrap that consensus and just go into a direct election or indirect primaries. So it goes back to having credible leadership structure in a political party. Once you have that in place, you won't have agreed party members, because if I listen to his story and he tells me he's an agreed party member, I can relate to what he's saying, because he probably spent a lot of resources, campaigned a lot, and to have that opportunity. I mean, I don't know if he would have won or not, but the opportunity to, win was taken away. So that's why we need credible leaders, not just the chairman, but just the National Working Committee and the National Executive Council. We need credible people in there.
Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing issues around APC convention, and in particular, what hope that women and youths have going forward within this party. So, as you were saying, that some of the intro, you don't agree.
Well, I was just listening to you. I heard you say that Mr. President picked candidates on a list, and that is incorrect.
Okay.
That is incorrect. So that was the point that I was trying to make. I do know for a fact that the APC has said it's a level playing field and everyone is allowed to contest. There have been conversations and horse trading, which is typical in politics. People give and take. There have been considerations and conversations around agreeing on a consensus candidate or consensus candidates in some instances. The zones and states, across the geopolitical zones have come together to say, okay, we're zoning this position to this zone and that position to that zone. Within those zones, they have said, okay, state A will zone this position to your state and this position to your state. However, regardless even of the zoning arrangements, candidates who would like to still vie for positions have been allowed to purchase forms and indicate their interests accordingly.
But if you have... Okay.
So I'm saying that has happened, and when you say it's
handpicked.
It is handpicked by Mr. President, that may not be altogether correct.
Okay.
Also, to wonder if there have been campaigns. There have been campaigns.
Okay.
A lot of campaigning has gone on. Maybe people have not resorted to fisticuffs because we are one family, but people have been talking to other people.
Okay, so Ms. Rinsola, here we are talking about a unity list, that you have that for all the party. You've first of all zoned the various positions to various geopolitical zones in the country, and then you have a list of persons that are supposed to occupy these positions by consensus. Doesn't that rule out campaign?
Okay, so as Dr. Samanetiri said earlier, I'm an aspirant in this upcoming convention. I'm running for the role of the National Youth Leader. And I've been campaigning, as have quite a number of other people running for various other positions. Now, consensus is not alien to democracy. And as she also rightly stated, yes, our governors may have people that they prefer to occupy certain positions, but then no one has been ordered to pull out of any race, and no one has been told that because a list is being worked on, then you have to jettison whatever it is that you're doing. So at the end of the day, it's your prerogative if you would like to go ahead, if you would like to pull out. We had the zoning done to regions just to ensure equity. Positions have to be distributed in an equitable manner so that there's a sense of belonging and every region is well represented. A party with a national outlook has to be careful to ensure that, all the regions are adequately represented at every level. So that's why the zoning was done. So as at the time that forms were made available, micro-zoning had not been done. And micro-zoning, for those who may not be familiar with political parlance, is you've taken a set of a number of positions to a particular region, and then you now sit down and say this is going to a number of states. And you know, as it is in any political institution or in any institution where you have a large number of people who have to agree on one issue with different interests at stake, there's been a lot of talk about microzoning in certain regions where it seems like the formula is still being contested. So a lot of aspirants are still in the race. Some have pulled out, perhaps they've heard from their leaders and they're not the preferred person for that particular role. It's a democracy, really. It's about freedom. We're all free to, you know, go ahead. We're free to decide we're no longer going ahead. We're free to do whatever it is that we want to. So I would also agree with Dr. and say that the contest remains open. It is true that the President met with our governors last night and that a unity list has been worked on, but then nobody has been ordered to pull out of the race.
Well, even if nobody has been ordered to pull out of the race, but you have this situation where you call a list, a unity list. So that means that even if I want to contest and I'm not a member, I don't know myself to be part of that list, that means I'm anti-unity within the same party. That makes people to feel that it's a way of giving by one hand and taken by the other, because you have this position. For example, up to last night, there have been people 7 people are contesting for the position of the APC national chairman. What's wrong with throwing the race open for people? Why consensus all the time?
I don't think.
Do you think we can build a democracy with consensus?
I don't think at all that the idea of a list, and you know, this list, I don't know if everyone has seen it, but I'm sure that if it was a compulsory list, then everyone would have been handed the list and say this is all you must do. That hasn't happened. Now, have there been conversations amongst people? Yes. In every democracy, people have a conversation. It's about alignment of interests. So people might say, okay, you know what? Why don't I give you this and I take this? So people will discuss, that doesn't in any way preclude anyone else from contesting. And you know, the good thing about democracy is that 24 hours is a long time. So you might get to the field and someone else who you don't even think might emerge. You know, the good thing about this is that Mr. President, as a father, has said, I'm father of all. He's had a conversation and has said, well, you know, if you guys ask me, I would think it would be a good idea if you all came together and had an agreement. Having said that, it's up to the people to say, okay, maybe we'll concede this to you. Maybe we won't concede this to you. And he hasn't gone ahead, I mean, taking every position one after the other and saying you've got to have John here, and you've got to have Amadou there, and you've got to have,
but at least it's been said that
Ngozi here.
He said
he hasn't done that.
He has picked Senator Abdullahi Adamu to be chairman of the party. And
quite frankly, I wasn't present when that happened. And, you know, my background is journalism, and I like facts are sacred for me. So since I wasn't present, I didn't hear it said. I would prefer not to lay credence to something I do not have sufficient.
What if it turns out to be true?
So it's true, but you know, like I said, I haven't been briefed accordingly, and I'm going to be at that convention, and I haven't been so briefed. So I think that generally speaking, what we have people having conversations naturally. Mr. President may say, you know, I think maybe John is very matured. Don't you guys think it might be a good idea? He places that on the table. And there are 10 people and maybe 8 people say, you know, we think we agree with you. John may be mature. Yeah, maybe it's a good idea. 2 people may say, no, we don't agree. Yes, John may be mature, but Peter too can stand a chance. You know, the good thing that has happened in the APC is that as at today, all contestants, you know, I think only one contestant has withdrawn from the race. So from where I'm sitting, it's a process that can throw up anybody. Yeah. And you know, the great thing is that the 7 gentlemen on that list, any of them can be party chairman. Any of them.
Well spoken like a politician. But
I don't know about that.
Yes, our paper reported today, you know, talking about facts and journalism. Our paper reported today 2 developments from yesterday. One, that the governors in their meeting with the president yesterday, you know, agreed to the choice of Abdullahi Adamu as party chairman. Of course, they didn't come out to say that, but when newspapers report stories, they must have sources, and they must be sure of their sources before they do that. That's one. Secondly, also afterwards, many governors said, okay, we have agreed on consensus, even as recently as in the last 30 minutes, the governor of Plateau State, who is also chairman Northern Governors Forum, was saying that we have a unity list, and that list is coming out on Saturday. That's 2 days from now. Where does that leave the other contestants? How do we build a democracy? Because the concern is not just about APC, frankly. It's also with PDP as well, because that's the process you are seeing throughout the political spectrum. We're in an election year, but very little election has been going on. Actual contest of ideas, contest of positions, clashes of ideologies, none of this has been going on. How good is this for Nigerian democracy, particularly for young people like yourself who probably have a different vision of the country?
So for those of us who are young, we are concerned about how zoning sometimes tends to not favor people in marginalized groups, young people, women. But at the same time, I was still reading something on a group this morning, and someone was talking about how when Senator Osita Sunazo emerged as, I think, organizing secretary of the party, there was a contest, as opposed to the consensus that had been reached, and he won. So quite a number of people are determined that whatever it is, whatever the list says, whatever happens, they are going ahead to contest. And it still ties back to the points that we both made earlier. Yes, a unity list is being worked on, but nobody has been told that once this list is finished and you don't find your name on it, then you have to just jettison whatever it is you're working on and you can't proceed with the contest. If you so choose to go ahead and, remain on the ballot and you want to see it to a logical conclusion and see, okay, I believe I will be voted for, or I actually want to know how things will go and I'm going to stay and remain in this race, then it's your choice to make. And I'm talking about our democracy. I actually believe our democracy was really hard fought. And, participation is key to sustaining it. And that's why I think that young people particularly should be actively involved in politics. And I know how tough the political terrain could be. I know how it is when certain decisions are made that nobody really seems to understand. But as young people, we also have to understand that we have to remain within that system and we have to continue fighting for the kind of democracy that we want. So we have a number of young people who have been affected by the purported microzoning formula in their respective regions who are still vying for the positions that they set out to vie for. And I think, well, that's a commendable trait. If you want to go ahead and you want to give it your all to the very last minute, then you're within your rights to do so. And I actually like the fact that our leaders have been understanding and I would say kind enough to make it very clear that, okay, we might be working on a consensus, but if you choose to proceed with, seeking votes, canvassing for support, talking to delegates, then it's absolutely up to you and it's your prerogative to do that or to just abide by what the party has said. So again, that choice remains open for everyone.
Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing what tomorrow might be for the APC and, well, for Nigeria. After all, the APC remains the party in power. And with me is Ambassador Hassan Jika Ardo and also Barrister Sam Kabo. So maybe we just go straight into it. The first question that I actually ask you as a contestant in this election is there a unity list that has been rumored? Should we be expecting a unity list tomorrow? And if that list exists, what does it mean for anyone who is not on that list but who has aspirations for respective offices within the National Working Committee of the party?
Well, thank you very much. Nice having you this evening. APC is a political party that is built on trust and justice as the basis of the formation of the party, because I happen to be among those who started the formation of this party from the legacy parties.
Okay.
Talking about the unity list, to the best of my knowledge up to this moment, it's just a rumor. I have not had anybody authoritatively saying that there's a unity list. But by definition, if we're talking about unity, what do we mean? A unity list may be a list that might have been decided by the critical stakeholders,
Such as?
The governors,
Okay.
the former governors, former president, vice president, senators, former senators, former members House of Representatives, former speakers, and a host of others. They have sat down to extract the entire political ground of each state to look at the nucleus of what APC is in that respective state and bring out people of caliber that can carry the flag of APC and make things work. Because the essence of having that is for the party to succeed. Because you cannot just go and bring somebody from the back door and expect that people should agree that that is a unity list. It should have the general acceptance of all party members across board that yes, this man have really worked for the party and he is qualified to be a member or to be enlisted among the unity list. Then that will give you the true position of what a unity list is. By the way, the party constitution provides that leaders can emerge either through consensus, which brought us to about the unity list, or through election, whichever. We prefer to have consensus and have a single candidate because there's mutual understanding among members. But when that cannot happen among party leaders, then we go into election and to have free and fair election. Everybody should reach out to party members, converse for vote, and let them be voted. Then we'll have a strong party that can win elections. That is what I believe. But to the best of my knowledge, as at this moment, it's just a rumor that there is going to be a unity list, which we have not seen, and nobody among the party faithfuls, among the leaders, have told me personally that there is a unity list. And the basis of having that list, that is what we are waiting for. If it did not suit our own interests, or the interests of the party, or the interests of the electorate, then it means that we have to go into election, which is also a constitutional requirement.
So, Barrister, you are associated with the with the APC, even as a legal as practitioner in private practice. What does it mean? Because the ambassador has raised a few important issues. One of them is that the process of a political outcome is as important as the outcome itself. So if you have a list, how you arrive at the list is just as important as the list itself. I think that's one of the most important things he has made. But if there is rumored to be a list, and the governor of Plateau State and the chairman of Northern Governors Forum was in the news yesterday saying that there is indeed a unity list that is coming up today. On tomorrow on Convention Day. If a member, someone as ranking as Governor Fayemi is coming out to say that they are not in agreement with any consensus candidates of the party, does that mean that there's been a problem with the process as to how that consensus is being reached?
You know, talking about the internal affairs of a political party is a very difficult thing because the law gives them an open-ended discretional field to play with. And sometimes when you intervene in terms of opinion or in terms of advice, you are basically relating it to how the way they conduct themselves affect you. And that is how I'm going to look at it, in the sense that I think I should start with this, and I need to make this point. Political parties should be, and are meant to be, the most important political organs in the country.
After all, they're the ones who govern.
Yes. Not so much about governance, but the process of the recruitment of the personnel of governance, and also the framing and articulation of policies for governance and development. It is their responsibility. So it's a very serious responsibility, and the Constitution envisages that every political party will organize itself in a manner that would make sure that it has the capacity to perform its constitutional role of not just giving the country the best of minds to man public offices and public institutions, but also to generate principles of democratic governance and democratic relationships. The idea of consensus is good, but this is how we've been looking at it. You don't look at the word consensus from outside its context. And what is the context here? It's history. The history we've had here, the consensus would have been, like he has hinted, the decision of the elites of the party, or not just the elite, the beneficiaries of the mechanisms of the political parties. And who are they? The people who are presently or in the past have what? Occupy public offices.
Within the party.
Yeah, but political membership in that nature is those who are beneficiaries of the political mechanisms are now up to 0.5% of the membership of the party. And therefore, our fear, which has severally and over the years been justified, is that those gentlemen who constitute the elite group of the party and who are benefiting both financially and otherwise from the largesse of the party, I will call it that, or what I will call the patronage of the party, or what I will call the goodwill of the parties, they only think about themselves, and much of their own consensus is what? Trapped within their narrow class.
In other words, he is
The narrow class.
consensus without consensus.
Yes, that's their
consensus
class.
without
That's
broader
their way.
consensus.
And
Okay.
this is where you have the disconnect. And this is where you have the difficulty of you finding out there in the street to say, this person, by the way he behaves, by the way he thinks, he is APC. This person, by the manner of his disposition, he is PDP.